The Void at the Edge of Town, Part 1. The House on Blackwater Ridge. Autumn 2005, age 14. The summer I turned 14, my family left the rolling hills of West Virginia for the flat, endless grid of central Indiana. The move felt like punishment. The new town was a perfect square of lawns and vinyl siding, every cul-de-sac cloned from the next. But beyond the last streetlight, the world changed. The land gave way to wild, thorn-choked forest locals called the Cut. That's where the old McAllister house waited. 2 miles in, half swallowed by vines, its windows were black holes staring into nothing. The place had a reputation. Kids whispered that if you stood in the parlor long enough, you could hear the house breathe. My crew, 4 of us, were the island of misfits at Westfield Middle. Jax, me? Too smart, too angry, raised on midnight creature features and a father who never unpacked his rage. Lena, the weird girl who once ate a booger on a dare and never lived it down. Now she carried a switchblade and a grin sharp enough to cut bone. Finn, the Finnish exchange student with a gravel voice and zero sense of fear. Miles, sarcastic, lazy, allergic to sincerity, but loyal in ways that counted. It was Lena's idea to go. "Halloween's next week," she said, twisting her hair around her finger. "Let's meet the ghost." So, on a gray October afternoon, we biked through drizzle until the trees swallowed the light. The path to the Cut narrowed until our handlebars brushed the vines. The air smelled of rain and iron. When we reached the house, the wind had gone still, like the woods were holding their breath. The front door leaned open a few inches, warped by years of damp. Finn pushed it wider, and the hinges sighed. Dust floated in gold beams through the gloom. The wallpaper peeled in curling tongues. Every step on the floorboards released a soft, wet creak, the sound of something deep exhaling. Miles whispered, "Told you. It's breathing." We laughed, but only to drown out how true it sounded. The parlor was a fossil of someone's life, sofa bones, a piano slumped on broken legs. In one corner, a family portrait hung sideways. The father's face was scratched out. The mother's eyes were 2 white pinholes, the children blurred like smoke. Finn found the basement door. It was half-rotted, cold to the touch. A smell of wet stone and rust rose through the crack. "Downstairs," he said, as if that was obvious. "Bad idea," Miles muttered. Lena smirked. "The best kind." We descended into dark. The stairs groaned with every step. When we reached the bottom, our flashlights carved tunnels of light through the dust. The basement was full of relics, rusted signs, bare traps, broken jars, the skeleton of a furnace. And then we saw it, a collapsed section of floor revealing a narrow gorge slicing straight under the foundation. Water roared below unseen. "That's the Blackwater River," I said. "It runs under the town." But the sound wasn't just water. It was deeper, rhythmic, a low, tidal rumble that vibrated in our teeth. My flashlight flickered. The air felt charged, as if the house itself was drawing breath through the hole. That's when the fear hit. Not panic. Not surprise. Something older. A command that came from somewhere beneath language: "Run." My pulse slammed in my ears. The walls seemed to inhale. I shut my eyes, and in that darkness, something formed. A shape stitched from static and moonlight, crawling forward with a neck bent the wrong way. Its wounds glowed like negatives on film. "Close your eyes!" I yelled. They obeyed. The thing lunged. We ran blind, crashing through the maze of tools. Metal clanged, glass shattered. Miles screamed as a sickle sliced his arm. We burst through the front door into rain so cold it burned. No one spoke until we reached the bikes. Lena's grin was gone. Miles's sleeve was red and slick. Finn stood staring back at the house, breathing hard. "Did you see it?" I asked. He shook his head. I heard laughing. We pedaled home without looking back. The rain turned the road to mirror, and every time lightning flashed, I thought I saw something reflected behind us, something smiling. The McAllister house was bulldozed the next spring. The town said it was unsafe, full of mold and rot. But sometimes, when I rode past the empty lot, The air still carried that hum, like a heartbeat under the soil. I never told the others what I saw in that last moment before we ran. As the door swung shut behind us, the thing stood in the parlor, head tilted, mouth torn wide, not in rage, but in permission. It had let us go. And somehow, I knew that meant it wasn't finished. The Void at the Edge of Town, Part 2. The Gorge at Nightfall. Fall 2007, age 16. 2 years had passed since Blackwater Ridge. The house was gone, but the memory clung like mildew. I still dreamt of the thing stitched from light, the way its grin hovered behind my eyelids. Most nights, I didn't sleep at all. I'd walk the river trails at 3 a.m., chasing silence. The Blackwater cut through the forest like a wound, black, glinting, alive. The sound of it was the same as the night we ran, a slow thunder under the skin of the earth. Sometimes I'd stop and listen, waiting for the heartbeat to sync with mine. One night in October, I saw it again, not the creature, but something wrong. A pulse of cobalt light deep in the gorge. It blinked twice, then held steady. Too smooth for lightning bugs, too steady for flashlights. I thought of the old house and knew exactly what I was looking at. I dragged the crew back together, minus Finn. He'd gone back to Helsinki the summer before, sending one postcard that said only, "Don't go near water at night." Lena came. She'd grown sharper in every way, cheekbones, wit, edges that dared you to cut yourself. Miles came too, quieter than before, carrying a kind of exhaustion I didn't yet understand. We packed flashlights, ropes, and the false confidence of 16-year-olds who'd already survived something they couldn't explain. We descended into the gorge at dusk. The clay slope turned to sludge under our shoes. By the time we reached the bottom, the sky was bleeding out its last color. The cobalt pulse flickered again, now joined by another, then another, eyes, we realized, glowing low across the water. "Animals?" Miles whispered. Lena shook her head. No reflection. Then came the voices. "Hello? Howdy. Spare a dime?" Each voice mimicked a different pitch, different rhythm, but all hollow, like they were learning how to sound human. The air shimmered. My flashlight beam caught motion, small shapes crawling across the gorge wall, child-sized but wrong in proportion. Their eyes were pits of violet fire. Then we saw the larger one. 7 feet tall, limbs like wire, dragging something behind it. A deer carcass. Its antlers scraped sparks from the rock. It stopped halfway across the riverbed and lifted its head toward us. The smaller things froze. It tore a leg from the deer and tossed it to the swarm. They fell on it, silent and frantic. "Run!" Lena hissed. We turned. The mud clawed at our shoes. Behind us, the mimic voices started again, perfect now, our own voices, repeating every word we said. "Run! Run! Run!" Miles slipped, his body vanishing into the black creek. I lunged, but Lena was faster. She grabbed his collar and yanked him up, water and blood spilling from his mouth. His flashlight was gone. The gorge pulsed with blue light, closer now, breathing. We didn't stop until we reached the trailhead. By then, the forest had gone silent again. Not even the river spoke. Back at Lena's porch, we sat dripping, too scared to go inside. Miles's lips were trembling. "They copied us," he said. "Every sound. Maybe they were always here," Lena whispered. "And we're the echoes." None of us laughed. I didn't tell them what I saw as we fled, the tall one standing in the middle of the gorge, head tilted just like the thing in the McAllister house, as if it were remembering me. As if it were waiting for me to understand. For weeks after, I heard voices in the hum of the fridge, the pipes, the wind against my window. Always in threes, asterisk hello? Howdy. Spare a dime, asterisk. Eventually, I stopped walking at night. But I never stopped looking at the river, waiting for the next pulse of light. Because part of me knew the truth. The house had been just a door. The gorge was what lid behind it. The Void at the Edge of Town, Part 3. Westfield High, the library and the gym. Halloween 2008, age 17. By the time we hit high school, The river story was legend. Freshmen whispered about glowing eyes and mimic voices, but to most people, it was just another ghost story. I'd started using it that way too, fuel for cafeteria dares and late-night retellings. If I couldn't forget the fear, I could at least turn it into something I controlled. That fall, I became the school's unofficial storyteller. I knew how to make people shiver, how to stretch applause until their laughter broke. Even teachers started asking me to write for the school paper, horror columns, urban myths, things that sounded like fiction but weren't. It was Lena who told me I'd gone too far. "You're feeding it," she said one night at the diner. "Every time you tell it, you give it more of you." I laughed, because that was easier than admitting how right she sounded. Then came Vince, the soccer captain, Lena's boyfriend at the time. He was built like a fridge and hated my stories. "Prove it," he said one lunch period. "Show us a real ghost storyteller." So I did. We broke into the school library after hours, Halloween night. The air smelled like paper and dust, thick with silence. I told them to bring books, any books, and stand in a circle. "It feeds on imagination," I said. "It creeps along the blind spot your mind makes when you're lost in words. You feel sleepy after reading? That's it sipping your will." Miles chuckled, but his eyes stayed on the dark between the shelves. Vince called me dramatic. Lena just watched. We opened the books. At first, nothing. Then the air began to change, subtle, like the temperature dropping after a storm. I heard the pages rustle even though no one was moving. The lights above us dimmed. "Do you hear that?" Vince asked. The sound was faint, rhythmic. Breathing. Something brushed the back of my neck, warm, damp, real. I spun around. Nothing. Then Vince's book slammed shut on its own. The echo cracked through the silence. We bolted, half laughing, half terrified. The doors to the gym were open, and we ran straight through them, our sneakers squealing on the polished floor. The gym was pitch black. The sound followed us, footsteps, but not ours. Too light, too many. Then a whisper, inches from my ear. "Hello?" The voice was my own. Lena grabbed my wrist. "It's here," she whispered. I felt its breath, sweet rot, humid. We sprinted for the exit, crashing through the doors and into the hallway. That's when we heard the scream. Lydia Chambers, student council junior, was being chased by a homeless man who'd slipped in through a propped side door. The teachers caught him minutes later. Everyone said he was the reason for the noises, the footsteps, the breathing. But I knew better. The next week, Brian, Vince's best friend, had a breakdown in the same library. He said something bit him while he was reading. No marks, just terror. He dropped out mid-semester. No one mentioned it again. I stopped telling stories for a while. Or at least I tried. But every time I stayed quiet, the silence itched. The thing had learned my voice, and it liked using it. Lena broke up with Vince that winter. We started hanging out again, quieter this time. She said she'd been dreaming of water, of voices that spoke in echoes. Miles joined sometimes, but he'd changed too, quieter, slower, like he was still hearing the gorge in his head. One afternoon, we found him asleep in the library, head on a stack of books. When he woke, he didn't recognize us for a moment. His eyes were glassy, far away. "What were you reading?" I asked. He blinked. "I don't remember." I took the book from under his arm. The pages were blank. That night, I wrote in my notebook until dawn, trying to make sense of it all. But the words kept changing when I looked away, sentences rearranging themselves, letters bleeding like ink in water. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed of the library, of rows of books breathing in unison. The air moved like lungs. Between the shelves, something shifted, tall, pale, eyes like floodlights. It raised a finger to its lips and whispered, "Keep reading." I woke gasping, the echo of paper rustling in my ears. After that, I stopped going to the library altogether. But every time I walked past its windows, I swore I saw movement inside, pages turning on their own, shadows reading by the dim hum of fluorescent light. The house had been the beginning. The gorge was the mouth. The library was the whisper. And the thing that lived behind them all had learned how to tell stories too. The Void at the Edge of Town, Part 4. The Detour. Homecoming night 2010, age 19. College hadn't changed much except the scenery. The town was still flat, the sky still too wide. I thought I'd left the ghosts behind, but they followed in quiet ways. The way silence pressed in after midnight, the way reflections lingered half a second too long. That fall, I was back home for homecoming weekend. Westfield felt smaller, emptier. Most of the old crew had drifted apart. Finn was a postcard. Miles worked nights at the gas station. Lena was studying art at a state college, visiting for the game. And somehow, I'd started dating Ava, cheerleader, soft-spoken, no scars in her voice. She didn't know the stories, not really. I liked it that way. We met up after the game, me, Ava, Lena, and Miles. My old Civic rattled like bones as we drove the back roads, music too loud, everyone shouting over each other. Ava sat in my lap while we cruised down County Road 9, a blur of headlights and cornfields. The night smelled like rain and exhaust and nostalgia gone sour. Lena was in the back seat with Miles, her head out the window, hair whipping in the wind. "We're not grown-ups yet," she shouted. "Let's prove it." I was furious for reasons I didn't understand, at her, at Miles, at how they looked together, at how she wasn't mine anymore. So when the trees thickened and the road bent, I pressed the gas instead of the brake. That's when it appeared. A notch in the dark, an absence of light so complete it hurt to look at. No reflection from the headlights, no texture, no edge. Just a vertical slit in the air where the world ended. "Ava," I said, but the word came out wrong, distorted, like played backward. Then the steering wheel jerked. Tires screamed. Headlights exploded into static. And we were no longer in Indiana. The air had changed, thicker, wet, heavy with moss and rot. The road was gone. The trees were taller, gnarled, ancient. The smell of the Blackwater River hit me like a punch. "What the hell?" Miles started, but the rest of his sentence drowned in the sound of water. We were in West Virginia. I knew it instantly, the hills, the earth, the way the air hummed with memory. But it was wrong. Too dark. Too still. The forest around us leaned closer, branches clutching at our clothes as we stumbled out of the car. The river ran below, wide and black as tar. Something rippled under its surface, slow and deliberate. Lena crouched by the edge, shining her phone light into the current. "It's reflecting stars," she whispered. "But there's no sky." Ava gripped my arm. "Jax, where are we?" The ground shifted underfoot, a low vibration, like breath through a hollow chest. Shapes began to move in the trees. Not animals. Not people. Something between. We ran. The forest stretched in impossible directions, loops folding over themselves. Every time we thought we reached a clearing, we found another bend, another path that doubled back. The trees whispered with voices not their own. One laughed, a perfect copy of mine. We stumbled into a clearing by the riverbank. The air smelled of copper and decay. Scattered across the mud were corpses, deer, coyotes, raccoons. And one human. Or what was left of one. Its eyes were open, mouth filled with river silt. Fingers twitched. Then it smiled. Ava screamed. I dragged her back, but her heel caught a root and she fell, hard. The mud swallowed her ankle. She clawed at the ground, gasping. "Something's pulling." I grabbed her hand and pulled. The mud stretched like flesh. Pale fingers, slick and bone-thin, reached up from the muck and locked around her leg. I yanked harder, felt the fingers snap. The river screamed. We scrambled to the car, slipping on wet leaves. The air pulsed with that same cobalt light we'd seen years ago, but now it was everywhere, spilling from cracks in the trees, rising from the soil. Miles threw himself into the passenger seat, Lena beside him, Ava shaking and sobbing in the back. The road behind us reappeared, wrong but familiar. I hit the gas. The trees blurred into streaks. But the sound followed, the rumble of water under the world. 5 minutes later, we broke through the tree line into open air. The night was quiet again, too quiet. We'd driven straight into a mechanic's lot off Route 52, 5 hours from where we'd started. A man in greasy coveralls stared at us like we'd crawled out of a grave. "You kids lost?" he asked. No one answered. Miles got out and vomited on the gravel. Ava clutched her knee, muttering the Lord's Prayer. Lena just stared at me, expression hollow. When I reached into my jacket to hand the mechanic some cash, something small and soft fell from my cuff. A finger. Gray, waterlogged, nails chewed to the quick. It hit the ground with a wet thud. I screamed and kicked it away. It landed in the shadows, where it twitched once before going still. We drove home in silence. Later, I found out the car clock was 5 hours ahead, but our phones said only 30 minutes had passed. The engine still smelled like river mud. Ava wouldn't speak to me for weeks. Miles quit his job. Lena started painting rivers, black ones stretching forever. I burned the clothes I wore that night, but I could still smell the water on my skin. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that vertical notch in the dark, waiting at the edge of the road. And I knew one day, I'd take that turn again. The Void at the Edge of Town, Part 5. The Right Turn Finale. October 2011, age 20. By the fall of my senior year, I'd stopped pretending it wasn't real. The house, the gorge, the library, the river, every place we'd touched had folded into one another, a single bruise spreading under the town. The only question left was how deep it went. Lena was the one who found the map. It wasn't a real map, not at first, just scribbles on the back of a thrift store painting she bought for class. But when she showed me, I saw it immediately. Each shape she'd drawn matched a location: the ridge, the gorge, the library, the road where the dark slit had opened. And in the center of all of it, a spiral. "It's not random," she said. "It's pulling us in." Miles didn't want to come. "We already survived," he said. "Why test it again?" But none of us believed that survival was permanent. Whatever had let us go that first time, it wasn't done. So one October morning, we loaded my Civic again. 2 hours west to Turkey Run State Park. New ground. No river. No ghosts, at least on paper. The trees there were different: limestone cliffs and narrow canyons, the kind that swallow sound. The air vibrated faintly, like a tuning fork pressed against the skull. I felt it the moment we parked. "This is it," Lena whispered. We entered at noon. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in broken rays. The path forked almost immediately. Left, a narrow trail winding through stone walls. Right, a wider one lined with ferns. We took the easy way. We always did. The trail looped back faster than it should have. One turn, two, and we were back at the entrance. Our footprints proved it. We hadn't gone far enough to explain it. Miles swore under his breath. I could see his hands shaking. "Maybe it's just the trail system," Ava said, trying to sound calm. She'd come to, against her better judgment. "People get turned around all the time." But I knew that wasn't it. The hum in the rock had grown stronger, vibrating through my shoes, my bones. When I pressed my hand to the cliff wall, it was warm. We set up camp at the clearing near the fork. As night fell, the forest dimmed into blue-black silence. Even the insects were quiet. I couldn't shake the sense that something was waiting just past the tree line, listening, patient. We fell asleep to the sound of the wind moving through the canyons like breath through a throat. Sometime after midnight, I woke to screams. 3 figures stumbled out of the narrow path. Flashlights bouncing, faces pale. It took me a heartbeat to understand what I was seeing. Us. Same clothes. Same faces. Dirt on the same knees. Our doubles. Lena woke next, then Miles, then Ava. The 4 of us stared across the fire at our reflections come to life. The copies looked terrified. "What the hell is this?" Miles shouted. One of the doubles, mine, stepped forward. His voice cracked. "We took the left path. It loops too, but there's something in there. It hunts." A sound answered from the darkness, a chittering, like wires tightening. Then the first thread snapped through the air, invisible but loud enough to make my teeth ache. It wrapped around my double's leg and yanked him upward. He screamed once before vanishing into the canopy. The others ran. Threads whipped through the clearing, slicing tents, carving lines in the dirt. We chased the noise into the trees, ducking low branches, the smell of sap and ozone thick in our throats. The forest opened into a cave mouth half hidden by roots. Inside, a faint light pulsed like a dying heart. We followed it. The cavern walls were lined with silk, thick, glistening ropes stretching from floor to ceiling. Inside them, bodies. Hundreds. Some fresh, some bones. 4 of them still moved. We cut them free. One was a stranger, skin flayed, leg gone, whispering a name I didn't know. The other 3 were us. Our doubles. Eyes wide, breast shallow, identical in every detail. Lena stared at hers, trembling. "Which one's real?" she asked. My double looked at me, pleading. "You don't remember it right," he said. "You left the house first." I saw the thing smile. I felt sick. The memory twisted in my mind. Had I left first? Or had I stayed long enough to see that grin? We backed out of the cave as the sound returned, the chittering, louder now, coming from everywhere at once. The stranger we'd freed gasped his last breath. I took the address he whispered before he went still. He'd said it was for his daughter. Outside, the doubles were gone. Only their footprints remained, overlapping ours until I couldn't tell the difference. We didn't speak during the drive home. Dawn broke gray and slow, the sky bruised with rain. At the state line, I pulled over. None of us said why. We just knew it felt like crossing out of something alive. That night, I drove to the address the stranger had given me. A small house near Terre Haute. The windows glowed warm. A little girl ran into her father's arms on the porch, the same man we'd found in the cave, whole again, smiling. His skin had no wounds, no scars. He looked up as if sensing me, then went inside. The door shut. The light went out. I sat there until sunrise, trying to decide whether I'd saved him or just set him free. When I got home, Lena called. "They're still out there," she said. "Ourselves, the others. Maybe either of us is the real one." I didn't know how to answer. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the thing didn't kill people. Maybe it just multiplied them, one version for every wrong turn. I packed a bag that night. Wrote a note I never sent. Drove until the radio cut out and the road turned to gravel. I stopped at the edge of a wide field, headlights sweeping across the emptiness. And there it was, the notch in the dark. Waiting. This time, I didn't break.